as you say, we've been deluged with people. 500,000 people have come down to Dorset, and it's been the perfect storm. There's been limited options for people cooped up in their households for so many weeks. Other attractions are yet to open. That'll probably happen on the 4th of July. But ultimately, there's not many options, so people have come to Bournemouth. But as we see with the scenes that many have seen, you would not think that there was actually an enduring emergency down there, or indeed anywhere. And I'm afraid some of the actions have been both selfish and indeed dangerous. And this has led to the council having to declare a major incident, and for both of the piers to be segregated away. It's been tough for the police themselves. I've spoken to the police minister to say, be prepared for other constabularies to give Dorset a hand, because we're only a very small police force. But ultimately, traffic is completely gridlocked. The emergency services can't get through. People are also drinking alcohol as well. So there's been some antisocial elements there too.
Tell us about what you've heard of. I mean, we've reported that people trying to empty the overflowing bins have been abused by members of the public.
Well, it's, as I say, it's people are going to get very, very cross. There's volunteers down there that are from the council, trying to get people to remind them that this is a continuing emergency. We've done so well to get this far, to get through the peak, and we will undo all that good work if we don't continue abiding by those guidelines. And I'm sorry to see some of the actions, very selfish actions by individuals. And I'd hate to see Bournemouth be that place across the country that gets the second spike, undoing all the good work and having to then see tougher lockdown measures being put back into place.
What does the declaration of a major incident mean in practice?
It means that it brings together all the emergency response services around the table immediately to say, do we have the assets to deal with the current situation? Do we require further assistance? How can we collectively make sure that the public safety is paramount, the emergency services can respond, and that in this case we can get people to depart Bournemouth safely. And of course, there's more people staying in Bournemouth as well, lighting up barbecues on the beach and dealing with the deluge of people. 500,000 people in Dorset with a very, very small police force, as I mentioned.
Why do you think this happened?
As I say, it's that rare combination of after lockdown, limited opening up of that, nothing else is open. It's a fantastically beautiful day. You can understand the desire to go to the seafront. But when we've been cooped up in our households for so long, but ultimately with so many people on there, it's now presenting its own dangers. And that's what we need to bear in mind. We cannot, disregard all the good work that we've done to date. And we need better coordination. There needs to be messaging at Waterloo Station saying Bournemouth is now full. The messaging needs to be on the M3 motorways as well by the highways agency saying, please don't venture down that way. You're only going to get caught in traffic anyway. Is that what the kids really want? And then coordination of what happens on the ground as well between the work of the council, the councillors and the volunteers, as well as the emergency services. And then you've got individual disruptive situations that the police are having to respond to.
But on the subject of messaging, it's only the other day that Boris Johnson was saying he wanted to see the return of bustle, although he was referring to after July the 4th. The government's abandoned the nightly COVID-19 briefing. Couldn't you be forgiven if you're a regular member of the public for thinking that the government too thinks that COVID-19's dangers have passed?
I hope that isn't the case. I disagreed with the closing down of the number 10 briefings. I think that this is an enduring emergency. Until we get a vaccine, we will continue to have restrictive measures imposed on us. And understanding how we can ease those and learn to live with this new normal is absolutely critical until the new vaccine is there. So getting clear communications as to the changing events is so important. I'd encourage the Prime Minister to reconsider that, or at least have, let's say, 2 meetings a week, which has been done, by not necessarily a member of the cabinet, but by perhaps one of the scientists as well, giving clarity as to the changes that we need to be aware of, reminding the public that we have to abide by these rules. Ultimately, we'll see a second spike, as we've seen in the United States and Germany and elsewhere. We want to avoid that here.
Because if the government hadn't abandoned these, the Prime Minister could have been on his feet, speaking to the nation in 35 minutes' time, putting out the sort of message you're talking about. Instead, there's nothing.
I don't disagree with that. I'm afraid my military background tells me that communications, with the wider your wider audience is absolutely critical, particularly when the dynamics are changing. We need to have absolute situational awareness. We have an issue down in Bournemouth, which is beyond the capabilities of the local council to manage, and therefore national assets must be moved quickly to support that. If you don't do that, the consequence will be a second spike, as I mentioned, and I would hate to see that on Bournemouth, particularly when people like me are calling on the government and on wider conservatories to say, please, we need your help.